Now let's talk quickly about wake windows and then this whole sleep training mess and naps, right? Need to check the time sometimes. Oh, we still have time. So naps. Naps is a super big topic, and a lot of parents feel like it's their fault why their kids are back nappers, right? First of all, remember short naps are developmentally normal, and it is not you. It's absolutely not you. Go back to our, information we have learned from newborns. This is normal. 30 to 45 minutes is normal. And I remember my son, Elliot, was a 27-minute cat napper on the dot. Like, I'm not kidding you guys, 27 minutes. And I had to previously rock him to get to that point and then redo it. And when he got older at 4 months, he wouldn't even let me rock him back to sleep. So that's why I was very desperate. Um, but yeah, so go back to now, you understanding the shift of sleep patterns, right? You learned that their sleep patterns shifted, and you also learned that them being drowsy is the first stage of their light sleep, which means for naps, it's the same thing as at night. If you assist them to sleep for naps, so let's say rock again, you nurse, you breastfeed, bottle feed, pacifier in and out, patting, whatever it is, it's this stage of like, and you're usually doing things to get them to sleep. You might be successful to put them down. You might be not successful because now, one big tip, this is not full to the brim for naps. So parents think they have the same amount of sleep pressure for naps as they do for nighttime sleep, and it's not true. This is just full to the brim for bedtime, but for naps, it's maybe half full. The only thing that is a little different is the first nap of the day. That's usually the nap where they have a little bit leftover sleep pressure from at night. But for the rest of the day, the third nap, the second nap, or let's say they're just on two naps, just for the second nap, they have the least sleep pressure of the day. And that's usually the one where they struggle the most. So it doesn't matter if you're in three naps, two naps, or one naps, the last nap of your day is always the hardest by nature. Not you, not your baby. So now go back to, we know if we hold them to drowsiness, we assist them to sleep. Every time they finish a sleep cycle, they will need your assistance to go back to sleep because that's what they know. That's what they remember since they're newborn. So now you're wondering, why is my baby just having 30-minute naps or 27 like my son or 45? First of all, they can have some learned behavior. And secondly, all sleep cycles are 30 to 45 minutes long. My daughter is 45 minutes on the dot. My son, like I said, 25 is 27 minutes. So it just depends also, like, sleep needs, and sleep needs start to become a little bit more individual past 4 months, and they really start to manifest between 6 and 12 months. That's when you can see, are they high sleep needs, low sleep needs, or average. My daughter is more high sleep needs, and my son is more average sleep needs. So back to napping. Remember, every time they depend on your help, they will need your help again to resettle when they try to, connect those sleep cycles. So baby falls asleep, first stage, light sleep, REM sleep, then light sleep again, and then fifth stage, light sleep again. And that's usually where they need to connect again to the first stage. That's when we see they wake up. That's when we see that they cry or fuss, or maybe some kids like Josie, they just lay around and look, always happy, but they just can't connect it. Why, right? Like, that's the why. Besides, like, you assisting them to sleep, why can they not connect it? 5% of all infants are developmentally not ready to connect sleep cycles for naps up until 6 months of age. And that is just normal, even if you try to sleep a nap train. It's not very common, but for some kids, that is just how their body is functioning, and they're still not fully matured on their sleep, their circadian rhythm, melatonin production, and that's okay. Like I said, we're all on our own timeline. Mostly it is because, let's say your sleep pressure is half full for naps, right? And then you took off one sleep cycle, and then you have maybe just a tiny bit left. That's the difficulty. They are still a little tired, but not tired enough for them to even try to go back to sleep. And that is so, so hard. So, first of all, you just need to know that they are still a little tired, because one sleep cycle is not enough to be refreshed. It's enough to be a little refreshed to make sure they're not getting overtired, but it's not enough to say it was a sufficient long nap. So what you could try, until if you have a newborn, I always say try to resettle them. And it's okay to have short naps. You can always choose to have an early bedtime, especially if they have a tough day of like being sick, getting shots at the doctor, just developmentally growing, like they're growing so much and so fast as you learn. Sometimes they're just a little bit more tired, and that's normal too. Doesn't mean anything is going on with your kid. They're just growing so much. They grow actually the most in their first life of age. And they're like nothing, they will never ever grow that much from like 0 to 12 months in their whole life. And I'm not kidding you guys. Look at your baby from like newborn until 12 months. It's like a complete new person. Um, so back to napping. If you have a newborn, any baby under 6 weeks, it is normal that they struggle. You can try to focus on 1 to 2 crib naps a day. Now I say try to focus, even if they're short, because you still want them to remember the crib and you still want to slowly, maybe, they're currently just an arm cat napper, but you want to reintroduce the crib if you want to start sleep training at 4 months. Even if they're short, that's okay. It's all about the experience, the learning, because sleep training is sleep learning. It's not some magic that we can work. If you have a child that is past 4 months, it is also okay to have short naps, but that's a great time where you can actually dive into sleep training and also nap training. I have my own technique with parents when it comes to nap training, and I have not done formal sleep training in over 1.5 years. I have developed my own technique or way to go about it. I kind of came away from, because formal nap training means you put them in and they have to complete 30 minutes of them trying to resettle for a nap. If they don't, then you call it quit, fall out of crying. And then after a few days, you go to 45 minutes and then to your full hour. I personally think that's just so much, and it's just so much crying. It's not necessary. I usually don't spill the beans, but what I do with my parents is we try for 10, maximum 15 minutes every day. We never prolong the process. It's always 10 to 15 minutes. And that is enough for them to learn. That's more than enough. And this period is also not a cried out period. This is you still get a reassurance period. You're never left alone to cry period. And that just depends on you and the sleep training technique you choose to use for your baby. Whatever that technique is, you will use that technique to get them to sleep for naps and to see if they can resettle. If they can't, that's okay. After your 10-15 minute period, you take them out, make them feel like they graduated college. They drive off our appearance, our body language. If you grab them, you're like, oh my God, you cried the whole time. It's so disappointing. Guess what? They're not going to be very encouraged, right? But if you go and grab them and you're like, oh my God, you did so amazing. I'm so proud of you. You did wonderful. You hug them and kiss them and make them feel loved and secure. They're going to feel so much more encouraged. I also say, and I praise this to all my parents, make sure you do a lot of positive reinforcement. The crib needs to be a happy place for them. It needs to be a happy, safe sleep space for them, which means we want to make sure that they actually love their sleep space. I know a lot of parents think that their baby is traumatized or afraid of the crib, and I can assure you that they don't actually develop the proper understanding of fear until they're past 2 years. And I've seen that with my son. Now he's 2 years and 2 months, and he started this whole like, I see, I see, I see, like if he's afraid of something, he tells me, I see mommy, and he points in corners, and now he wants a night light, and he has like a star projector on, and it's all in like very dimmed, and it's just red. So we're not encouraging wake periods and wake times. We're actually having it, low key, and red light also encourages melatonin production, so sleep pressure. So we're making sure it's, age appropriate and it's not actually keeping him up. But proper fear is not going to be developmentally kicking in until past 2 years. So don't feel like you need to wonder, is your baby afraid of the crib? It is usually just the association they have. Usually they know if they call for you, and by calling I mean crying. If they call for you, you will make their crying stop, right? Because that's just what we moms do. We pick them up, we pull them into our bed, or we rock them, feed them back to sleep, and that's what they have learned as newborns. That's why they continue doing it as infants. Depending also on to like how long have you done it? Have you been doing it just for a few weeks or actually for a few months? Now your baby's like 8, 9, 10 months old and you're still, let's say, co-sleeping or rocking, patting, nursing to sleep. Obviously, they're expecting you to do certain things much more than someone that has just been experiencing it for a few weeks. So back to nap training. Keep in mind, nap training by nature is a little bit more tricky because we have that lack of sleep pressure, and it's just normal. Naps, like I said, it's hard to resettle, and using that technique can actually take 1 to 3 weeks. Most of my parents are actually able to get one better nap in the first week, and then usually we're pretty solid on all naps in the second week, like full on successful with our modified sleep training technique. So keep in mind, it is a working process. Don't get discouraged. If your child refuses to go down for a nap when you're trying to train, that's okay. After 30 minutes, you call it quit and you say, we tried with your technique that you choose to use, and that's okay. You do an emergency nap. You maybe do a car nap, a stroller nap, a carrier nap, or even a contact nap. You want to ensure some proper daytime sleep. If your child goes down independent with the sleep training technique, which is the first step of independent sleep, and I always make it clear to my parents, when we start sleep training, don't expect them to have great naps just the day after we started. I always say the first step of our success is going down independent for a nap. It's not to connect a sleep cycle. That's a working process. So once your child goes down independent, they don't need to be assisted, rocked, fed to sleep anymore. So instead, you use your technique to get them to sleep. That's the first step of them knowing, like, oh, I can actually do it by myself. And then they're learning how to reconnect those naps, those sleep cycles. And that's when you can use your 10-15 minutes. Again, this is not a cry out 10-15 minutes. You will, again, use your technique to reassure your child, to make them feel loved, secure, to make you help them co-regulate so they're never getting to the point of like, I'm fed up, my cortisol levels are high, there's no way of me settling. Like I said, naps are by nature hard. When you start sleep training, and you might have a few days where all your naps are super short because you're working on independent sleep skills, that is so normal. If you have a really, really bad nap day, choose to not have a set nap at bedtime. And yes, I know what I said. And you're like, why? Everyone says set bedtime. I always say be flexible. Let's be honest, our kids are not robots. We cannot program them to be like, your naps are going to be great and you're going to bed every day at 7 p.m. It always depends on when does your last nap end of the day and how much total sleep did they get for their age, right? Yes, I will talk about that. Mm, so my mom brain's back. um, it's gone. Maybe someone can just type me in my question box what I was just talking about. God damn it, mom brain and nursing doesn't help. um,
Set bedtimes.
set bedtimes. Thank you, Jack. Yeah, good that I have you. Okay, set bedtimes. So I always say it depends on when did your last nap end of the day, and also how much total daytime sleep did they get. If your kid had like a total shit day, and yes, I said shit, um, all 30-minute naps, they're 4 months, they need at least 3.5 to 4 hours of daytime sleep. And yes, I know that's a lot, but that's age appropriate. That's what they actually need. You don't want to push them to like 8 p.m., not even 7 o'clock. Trust me, you want an early bedtime. So what usually happens is parents believe that myth of pushing the baby for later bedtime will make them sleep better and that will make them sleep in, right? A whole lot of BS, because what happens is if our kids get overstressed, same for infants and toddlers, but toddlers act different, in a second more to that. For infants is they get so overtired, their little bodies produce cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone, which makes them cry more, they fuss more, they refuse their bottles, they have more night wake ups at night, they struggle hard to go down for bedtime, for naps, resettling, reconnecting sleep cycles, everything gets more intense and hard. But let's say your kid really like goes past wake windows big time, you can't get them down at all anymore, then that cortisol production goes to adrenaline production. So their little bodies, they're wired. They're actually like, elevated heart rate, elevated breathing. Their body is almost in a fight flight situation. So usually what happens if it gets to that point, and sometimes it just happens because of especially if multiple kids or if baby's just in a developmental growth spurt and then you try to feed them, but they're refusing. And then, this whole thing. So let's say that happens, don't freak out. In that situation, even if you're sleep training, and make sure you get them to sleep. And I posted a reel about that just think a week or two ago where I showed off like Josie was overstimulated. She was screaming. She had a choking attack right before nap time. She wouldn't calm down. Then Elliot coughed in her ear and he wanted nuts. So I had to get up and she just settled on the breast. So obviously I had to try again. In that situation, if your kid is so past their wake window, ensure quality sleep. Screw sleep training and screw nap training. You're going to make sure that they get proper sleep. But let's say they also, the whole day was just catnapping and they're already miserable. And it happens the first, especially 24 hours of sleep training, because everything is new, everything shifts and you're reteaching. Ensure proper sleep with an early bedtime. Every time your child doesn't get enough daytime sleep, if you put them down early, keep in mind they need 11 to 12 hours of uninterrupted nighttime sleep, and they also need good daytime sleep. So let's say your child missed out on 1 to 2 hours of daytime sleep. If you put them down early, what they're going to do is they catch up on their missed out daytime sleep and then connect their 11 to 12 hours on top of it. So it is never a bad thing if you say, hey, this was such a bad day today. You barely slept. I need to put you down at 6:30. Trust me, they're not going to wake up at 4 a.m. Waking between 4 and 6 is always due to a self-soothing issue and them just having low melatonin. So just trust me on that one. The earliest I've done with my own kid was 6 p.m. And I always suggest it to all parents. It does not backfire. It actually works the opposite. So just keep in mind, if you start sleep and nap training, you want to do an earlier bedtime when they have a bad day. Same for if they're sick or growth spurt. If they give you all these signs of like needing more sleep, do an early bedtime. Set bedtime is great when they're older. And that's, for my son now, because he's past 2 years, he goes to bed at 7:30, 7:45 every night. He's super set on everything. For Josie, she usually goes to bed between 6:50 and like 7:05, 7:10, and she is turning 5 months. And that just all depends on like when did the last nap end and how good was her day. Like I said, it's a little flexible. And I always say give or take 30 to 60 minutes, depending on the day. Yes, we put our little guy down as early as 6 if he takes all day of crap naps. Totally right, Amber. So now you learned how to go about nap training. Like I said, nap training is a process. Don't get flustered, discouraged if it's not going to kick in after 2 days. Totally normal. It honestly is a process. Josie was super good for nap training. She took 2 days and she was solid. Elliot took 3 weeks. That's how different your kids can be. To say